at least. Next is your RAM. Hello friends, in this section we will learn about the tools which are required. Hello friends, Hello friends, in this section we will learn about the tools which are required for the development and the basic prerequisite for a machine, the basic knowledge you should know before going to start your Android app development. So the tools, first I'll discuss about the tools which are required for the development are, first is the Java JDK. Java JDK, you need to install it before you go and install Android Studio, because this is required to configure your Android Studio and do your app development. Next will be your Android Studio development. So Android Studio, as I told you earlier, it allows us to write the code, and it is the IDE provided by Google, and to run it on different Android devices. And the Android Studio, next will be so Android Studio, we will anyways download it from developer.android.com, which I'll show you in the next coming sections. Third thing which we require is the Android emulator. Android emulator is something which you can say, once you develop your Android apps, you have to run those apps on some devices. So rather than executing them on actual Android device, you can run it on emulators. So I'll prefer Genymotion emulator, because in Genymotion emulator you will get a lot many options of different Android devices and test it on different version, different screen resolution. For example, you want to test your app like how it looks on a Samsung device, which has a different screen resolution, screen size, and how it looks on a HTC mobile. You can do it using a Genymotion emulator. So I'll cover in the coming sections how you can create a Genymotion emulator, how you can configure it with the Android Studio, everything in a detailed way. Next is your Android device. You can test it. Android device is nothing but it's the actual Android phones. You can test your Android apps in your actual Android phones. Apart from this, you have your pre-configured Android devices with the Android Studio as well, which is known as the AVD, that is Android Virtual Device, which is used for executing your apps in the devices. So this all I'll cover in the coming section. This is the Android Studio 2.x requirements. So if you have like Windows 10, 8 or 7 with a 32-bit or 64-bit machine, it should be at least. Next is your RAM. So there should be minimum of 3 GB RAM, and I would recommend a 8 GB RAM. 8 GB RAM I'm saying because the thing, once you have installed your Android Studio and once you run your emulator as well, so running both these things simultaneously takes a lot of CPU usage, and basically your machine gets hang. This I have personally faced this issue, so I'll recommend all of you to use at least a 8 GB RAM machine, which will give you a better performance and it will not at least hang your machine. Disk space is 500 MB disk space is required for Android Studio at least, and at least 1.5 GB for Android SDK, emulator system images and caches. Next is the Java version. So as I told you, before installing Android Studio, you have to install Java development kit, which is, so version 8 will be preferred version for before installing your Android Studio. Next, on knowledge basis, you require prerequisite is that you should have a basic Java knowledge, but don't worry if you don't have it. I'll anyways cover in the coming sections all the basic Java knowledge which will be required for developing your apps, and your understanding about methods, class, objects, inheritance. So again I'll say don't worry about that. I'll cover this all things in the coming section, and it will be quite expertise in developing an Android app. So best of luck, and let's begin the next section.